You may begin.
Okay, good evenings, everyone, and good morning for some people based in Southeast Asia. And to begin with, I would like to acknowledge the sponsor, the organizers of the webinar. This webinar is part of the LUS Southeast Asia Transition Webinar Series, a collaboration between University of Hawaii and Manaus, Michigan State University, and Chiang Mai University. We thank to Henry Luce Foundation's Southeast Asia Initiative. In this final webinar, we will foreground the vegetal landscape, looking at how forest agricultural taskscape are affected by discourse and projects of development, indigenous perspective on landscape and their alteration in the name of development will be our primary focus here. And we have 4 speakers here. First, Dr. Chandrit Nguyen, Honorary Academic, University of Auckland. Dr. Walker Depoy, Visiting Fellow at in the Southeast Asia Program at Cornell University. Mr. Aman Kemho, PhD candidate in International Doctoral Program in Asia Pacific Studies at the National Chang Chih University. And finally, Mr. X Suwan Na Kraches, representative of Prey Long Community Network Cambodia, and he will be helped by Dr. Tim Fruber to do the translations. To begin with, we will start with each of our speaker would give a 5-minute presentation about their work and the research they would like to share in relation to the topics that we will be discussing today. And we will begin with Dr. Chandrit Nguyen.
Thank you, Sophia, for the nice introduction. Again, I am Chandrit Nguyen, working at the University of Auckland, New Zealand, as an honorary academic. Before I worked with Sophia at the Faculty of Development Studies at the Royal University of Phnom Penh, Cambodia. And I have been working on land governance, customary land tenure, and climate and urban resilience in Cambodia. So today I want to share a bit of my work that I happen to have joint study and joint field observation a few years ago, I guess some years ago, in Mondulkiri province, northeast of Cambodia. So the story that I'm telling today is a commune that is mainly lived by indigenous Bunong people who have faced various challenges, I may say, brought by concessions, conservation programs, and market transformations. And I think the gist of the story that I want to say here is about how concessions and conservation programs intersect with the communal land titling, in short, CLT, to reduce customary rights of the indigenous community in the commune. Let me briefly introduce the commune a bit. The commune has 6 villages and is located near a wildlife sanctuary. And in 2007, with support from an international NGO, the commune established. At that time, it was called a Community-Based Production Forest, or CBPF, which gave the community the right to extract forest resources in a sustainable manner. During the time, the CBPF covered over 9,000 hectares of the forest area located within the sanctuary. And in 2018, the CBFP, the Community-Based Production Forest, was renamed to a Community-Based Protection Area, CPA. So when the Ministry of Environment took the duty or the charge of the protected areas in Cambodia. And the CPA was selected as a pilot project for a REDD+ program supported by the international NGO. And before the establishment of the CPA, the villagers' customary forest had been encroached upon by forest concessions, which started in the mid-1990s. Specifically from 1997 to 2000, a forest concession operated by a foreign company cut down thousands of liquid resin trees belong to the community and reduced access to their forest resources since the concession overlapped with the community's conservation area. The forest concession was suspended in 2000, mainly due to the protests by the communities with support from some NGOs, but illegal logging in the area by armed military, local elites, and also individual villagers started. So this made the forest cover of the conservation area at the time the CBPF in the commune declined from over 9,000 hectares in 2013 to less than 4,000 hectares in 2017. And the commune also suffered from economic land concessions. So forest areas of 2 villages in the commune were cleared by ELCs, economic land concessions in short, and specifically in 2010 and again in 2012. So the villages lost about 2,500 hectares of the forest area to 2 Vietnamese rubber companies. Also, the common land in the CBPF area at the time were cleared by migrants, mainly Khmer people who migrated there and cleared their forests to grab land. At the same time, in another village, a gold mining concession operated by a Chinese company cleared a big chunk of the forest area from 2006 to 2010. So what I want to continue from here is that these various forces of exclusion intersected with the challenges in the communal land titling program introduced in the commune. But these also happen along crop market transformations in the site. 4 of the 6 villages in the commune have gone through the commune land titling process or CLT process. 2 villages received their CLT certificates in 2013, but by the end of 2018, the other 2 had not received their CLT certificates due to conflicts over land boundaries with the 2 Vietnamese ELCs. Another village participated in the CLT process in 2008, but many villagers decided to apply for individual land titles during the Prime Minister's Order 01 campaign in 2012. And they received the individual titles in 2013. Many villagers in that village lost their patience waiting for the CLT certificates. So that's why they applied for individual land titles, taking the chance of the Prime Minister's Order 01 campaign in 2012. The village in the commune was not eligible as an indigenous community because of the high number of Khmer immigrants residents living in the village. And many villagers in that village also applied for private land titles during the Orders of One campaign. So here, the first complication started with when villagers shifted to grow cassava and cashew nut on permanent farms. And this happened, I think, particularly after some villagers got the private land titles as well. So the shift to these cash crops saw Sweden cultivation on rotating farms almost abandoned and replaced by cash crop cultivation on permanent farms. I think in at least two villages, Sweden farming was no longer practiced because they shift to cash crop cultivation, and also because of the reduced access to Sweden farming areas that were restricted by the ELCs and the conservation programs. So this market transformation made the CLT mechanism or program marginalize vulnerable community members in many ways. So I want to discuss some ways here. First, the growing popularity of cash crop cultivation made villagers not only to maximize benefits from land, but also to protect their land from being encroached upon by companies and immigrants. So when market demand for cash crops was high, villagers started to increase their cultivation land by clearing forests within the CLT non-registered areas. And this quest for more land made households with better income or more labor, especially man-headed households, acquire much more land than poor and woman-headed households. And there was an increase in households that manage large farms, especially permanent farms for cash crop cultivation for growing cashew nut and cassava. And at the same time, we saw the disparity of household land holding sizes increase gradually. So the transition to cash crop cultivation resulted in an increase in incomes from cash crops, of course, among households. But this happened along with income inequalities within the villages. And at the same time, many poor households still depended on gathering or collecting food from the forest for their livelihood, despite the decreased access to their customary forest. And secondly, I want to say that large-scale clearing was against the indigenous community rules and regulations, but it was difficult to enforce equally because of unequal power relations within the villages, and also because of the fear for land encroachment by outsiders caused by people. And these factors caused people to clear more land against the IC's rules. For example, we observed that village leaders and committee members acquire more land than the average villagers, especially women-headed households. So, just one more minute, please. So finally, I can conclude that besides the unequal benefits among members, the CLT caused conflicts between members and non-members over common resources in some villages. So there were disputes over who should be eligible to access the spirit forest and burial ground, for example, after the community received the CLT certificate. So non-members demanded that these common resources be accessible to all, since the resources had existed before the IC establishment. So the story questions the implementation of the CLT on the ground and its rationale as that it protects indigeneity and promotes equitable benefits in a sustainable way. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Chandranan, for very interesting and showing how complex this transformation is between local communities, indigenous people, different sectors, states, actors, economic land concessions, and conservation. So now we can move to Dr. Walker DuBois. Please begin your presentation.
Sure. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for attending today. My name is Walker DuBois. I'm an environmental anthropologist and a visiting fellow at Cornell University's Southeast Asia program. And I wanted to talk a bit today just about some of my research in East Kalimantan, Indonesia. It sounds like that it's a story that's very much related to the previous speaker's work, and I'm excited to have a chance to talk more and hear more about those particular connections. And so with my talk, maybe I will just zoom out a bit and speak to some of the broader development agendas that are shaping this particular part of Kalimantan. I'm going to just quickly share my screen. Okay, can you all see this? Great. Okay. So to begin, I wanted to just show a map of the Berau district of East Kalimantan. As you can see here, it is the easternmost part of the island of Borneo, and it spans 2.2 million hectares of diverse forest, mangrove, and coastal ecosystems. Importantly, it's what many are calling today a working landscape, meaning that it has diverse stakeholders that practice a wide range of land uses and livelihoods across it, from local communities to timber, oil palm, and mining concessions, to a diverse range of conservation and development organizations. It's also been shaped across centuries by those same actor groups, as well as a variety of colonial and post-colonial actors. In thinking about Berau district, it's important to recognize the role of the Berau Forest Carbon Program. This has been called the first jurisdictional REDD+ program in Indonesia. And as a jurisdictional REDD+ program, it spans the entire district of Berau with a mandated agenda to promote low emissions development. This program has been proposed and advanced by a range of actors, everything from the Indonesian national government and district forest department to NGO actors like the Nature Conservancy and other governmental development groups like GIZ and Forkline. And it's really been held out as a model of landscape scale green development. The first thing that really strikes people when they see Berau is that it is overwhelmingly forested, with 3/4 of its land area covered by state control designated forest. This can be seen in both the protection forest in dark green, as well as the production forest in light green. Shown here, you can also see a brown layer that suggests convertible land area for other non-forest uses. But looking at this map, something else also jumps out at you, which is that the overwhelming majority of this area is also controlled by research concessions that have been granted by the national government over the last many decades, with timber concessions neatly aligning with the production forest mentioned previously, and in red, palm oil concessions aligning with the non-forest use land areas. Importantly, in thinking about this landscape, the rest of the brown layer is actually covered by mining concessions, though that unfortunately can't be shown today. Overlaying an admittedly imperfect shapefile of Barrow's 100 or so villages makes something very plain, however, and that is that for the overwhelming majority of these communities, they don't possess legal land rights to the forest and land on which they live. And that in fact, their lives and livelihoods are shaped by both the presence and the patronage of the resource concessions and companies with whom they live. And so if you put these two maps side by side together, you get a sense that Barrow is a really interesting place, that it is both the site of a flagship REDD+ project, as well as a key node in Indonesia's extractive regime. And I would argue that holding these two things together at the same time really shows the contradictions and the limitations of green growth agendas that are simultaneously trying to promote sustainable climate change mitigation, as well as extractive based economic growth simultaneously. One way that the government and other NGO actors are trying to promote this green growth vision in Barrow is through a community development, engagement, and social safeguard framework called CGAP, which is an acronym that stands for Community Inspired Action for Change. As one policymaker described it, it's how you get really practical in terms of implementing rights-based approaches on the ground. CGAP in particular tries to do this work by promoting alternative livelihoods for communities. This is everything from limiting and minimizing swidden cultivation to promoting agroforestry activities, ecotourism, and ecological restoration of quote unquote degraded areas. They also importantly try to promote tenure reform through national social forestry agreements, as they're called. And to date, CGAP has been deployed in dozens of villages in Barrow, as well as a variety of other places around Indonesia. But viewed through a political economy and a political ecology lens, it can be seen that CGAP facilitates Indonesia's green growth agenda. In particular by marginalizing particular community livelihoods that are seen to be non-productive or acts of degradation, such as swidden. But also its emphasis on, in particular, state planning and resource concession partnerships shows how its emphasis on promoting rights can ultimately actually reinforce in myriad ways state and concessionary control of forests. And that this ultimately can obscure the dominant drivers of landscape change and stakeholder conflict in the area. As one local CGAP facilitator explained, he compared the pursuit and implementation of CGAP to misapplied headache medication when considering the full range of challenges and drivers affecting Barrow. As he says, quote, "It's like some kind of pain reliever when people are sick. We have a headache, so we are given headache medicine, even though the headache is only an indication that there is a disease in us. It could be that we have a stroke. It is not the source of the problem that wants to be resolved, but only the impact. And so in thinking about just this short introduction to this research here, it's really meant to point out that the contradictions in green development can also shape the content of local and community rights, and subsequently the mechanisms that are designed to promote and safeguard them. And that together this raises questions about how else rights could be conceived in such programs and therefore protected across such complex conservation landscapes. And so with that, I'd like to thank you, and I'm happy to talk more as this session continues.
Thank you very much, Dr. Walker. The voice is very interesting and also very similar pattern. We can see the interaction between conservation development and local community dynamics that's happening in Kalimantan, and Northeast Cambodia is a quite similar kind of agency and power dynamic. So now we can move to our third speaker, which is Mr. Arman Chamhol. Please.
Hello, everyone, and a pleasant day to all. I'm Arman Chamhol, a PhD candidate at the National Chengchi University in Taipei. I come from the Philippines, specifically Ifugao, home to 4 major groups of indigenous peoples, builders of the rice terraces, World Heritage Sites, as well as the Hudhud chants, which are also inscribed in UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage List. So I will be discussing part of my dissertation proposal, which tackles agency in Ifugao animism, focusing on various types of human and non-human entities in the Ifugao pluriverse, contextualizing it to the present day, where development and religion or Christian religion have broken the mutual coexistence between humans and the rest. So the Ifugao pluriverse includes humans, animals, plants, wild and domesticated, and unseen beings. That also includes ancestors, ancient heroes, deities, and spirits found in nature. So early and mid 20th century studies provide a map of the Ifugao ontological landscape with its 5 worlds or dimensions and a panoply of deities across different classes. Norwegian anthropologist Jan Henrik Sigler Rem in more recent research laid out his argument on Ifugao ontology as ontopraxis, where human and non-human relationships are enacted and lived on a day-to-day basis. In his view, Ifugao's need to maintain relationships with dead relatives, deities, and other spirits through rituals, which takes into account some distancing. So too close and it may lead to sickness, and at the extreme death or separation of the physical body from the substance, which we Ifugaos call linnawa, or perhaps can be roughly translated as life force. While I applaud Rem, I think he focused on just one aspect of Ifugao animism, that is the relationship between humans and unseen beings, where the Mumbaki or interdimensional communication specialist plays a pivotal part. Thus, while he correctly posited that all living things are endowed with this life force, he failed to grasp the fact that this life force gives individual animals and plants agency as well. Thus, his supposition that in the animal kingdom, only certain birds and reptiles can have agency, albeit as messengers sent by non-human beings, is, for me, an inaccurate description of the Ifugao ontopraxis. Conversations with my interlocutors have unearthed a rich array of cases where various fauna and flora have shown their agency, the potency of which at times can be deadly. So there's this famous story of a whole village being swallowed up by a flash flood due to the killing of a leech. Any domesticated animal or fowl, when treated improperly or harshly killed, can bring curse upon the human owner's house, leading to the mass demise of animals of this kind in the household. Also, not treating the domesticated animals of one's neighbors can backfire. And if hunters do not undertake regular wellness rituals for domesticated chickens or pigs are sacrificed, these hunters or a family member may encounter a mishap. So there are plenty of cases where across villages in the entire province of Ifugao, where hunters who do not do these rituals are mistakenly shot and killed by their fellow hunters who see them as game. In my childhood, I heard of elderly women talking to rice plants as if these were human. But with modernity, Christianity, and the state, there is less emphasis on Ifugao indigenous practices. At the village level, the need to send children to school, coupled with the assurance that the Abrahamic faith saves, motivate households to extract and pollute more and conserve less in their agricultural and forestry activities. This has made it also more convenient for commercial interests and its partner, the state, to further their profit-based goals. Nonetheless, a large fraction of the population, although not the majority, which cuts across socioeconomic backgrounds, still live within the indigenous ontology, or at least in its margins or fringes, consulting the Mumbaki regularly and performing rituals as needed. So 2 months ago, there was an uproar over the planned cutting of decades-old trees in a Catholic secondary school, incidentally where I graduated from, to give way to a gymnasium. It proceeded anyway, and last week during the groundbreaking ceremony, presided by the bishop, Catholic bishop of the vicariate, a pig was sacrificed. A month ago, prior to dynamiting a rocky mountainside, said to be the dwelling place of powerful non-human entity, in the construction of a road leading to my village, the engineer procured a black pig, a native pig, and offered it first in a ritual. So we can describe these recent actions of the bishop and the engineer as utilitarian. While these were done in recognition of indigenous practices, or perhaps in fear of possible retribution from unseen beings, this fell outside Ifugao ontology, where all beings have a life force. But all is not lost, though. There is a need to fully explore. What we need to do is to fully explore Ifugao ontopraxis towards obtaining knowledge and producing courses or programs that can mold younger minds and perhaps try to alter or change environmentally destructive behavior, because our indigenous knowledge transmission mechanisms are breaking up, and the only way, perhaps, a way would be through the formal educational system. Thank you.
Thank you, Arman, for this very interesting presentation that takes us to the non-human world very precisely in the Ifugao communities in the Philippines. And so now it's very good to hear from our indigenous community representative from Prelong Network in Cambodia. Please, Mr. Sawan, and will be translated by Dr. Tim Frewer. Bon Sawan, chấp ra mà.
Okay. Okay, chào các bạn. Okay, good. He would like to say thank you for inviting him. Thank you for being here.
If he'd like to talk directly to you, and then he can mute himself.
He's a representative of the Prelong community group that's been working for several years.
We can't hear you, Fruva. We can't hear you, Dr. Tim Fruva. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
You can't hear me or Vana?
Both of you. Now you can. I can hear you now, but I can't hear Vana.
Vana xong dây ở microphone tích. Okay, to tiếng. Ồ, Vana ọt lưới tê. ọt lưới sọ. Okay. No. Không có to tiếng. Okay.
We still can't hear you, Bong Sawana. We can't hear you. And I think the best thing is Bong Sawana can mute himself and talk to Tim, and Tim can translate to us. It'll be better.
Yeah. Okay, jumping for that. So Pray Long has been an important community group that has been established within Cambodia for many years now, and it consists of different groups in different provinces who work on a voluntary basis to try and protect this large piece of evergreen forest. It's predominantly a community group that's been established since the early 2000s, and they all work on as part of a voluntary network. He's part of this voluntary network. He was formerly the coordinator in Kachay province, just west of the Mekong, and he's still heavily involved in community protection of this important evergreen forest. Okay, Vana. Okay, so Pray Long has faced a lot of challenges, and particularly the community groups that make up Pray Long have faced a lot of challenges in trying to ensure that forest remains protected. In particular, there's a number of companies. In the early days, there were timber companies, but later on there's agricultural companies. And in Kachay, in particular, they've had to fight one large agricultural company called Think Biotech, and they've had an initial success in the early 2000s due to community mobilization, where they were able to reduce some of the land that company had of Pray Long, but there's still ongoing problems, ongoing struggles against large companies. The day-to-day activities of the Prey Long Community Network are many and numerous, but in particular, a lot of their early work and their continuing work focuses around doing community-based patrols. So that means going into the forest area from each community in their local area and doing patrols. In this, they would often actively meet and confiscate the equipment of loggers. They'd often meet with loggers and try to prevent logging that's been occurring within their stretch of Prey Long. And secondly, they've also been doing some activities, some advocacy activities around trying to stop continued logging by companies or large groups. In addition to this, they've also been doing data collection of loggers, counting and documenting cases of logging, reporting it, and working with different partners based outside of Prey Long who can help to publicize that. So there's been many administrative changes by the state and how the state manages Prey Long. Up until 2016, Prey Long was managed by the Forestry Administration, but in 2016, there was a shift over to it being formally recognized as a protected area and under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Environment. Since that time that it's become a formal protected area under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Environment, the Prey Long Community Network has faced a new set of challenges because some of that land has been, during that exchange, some of that land has been given over to a company, and some of that land has also been, a lot of the Prey Long Community Network have lost access to some of the land that they formerly had. So even though in the past when it was not formally recognized, the formal recognition since 2016 has had its own challenges. Another important aspect about what the community in the community Prey Long Network does is about the way that they respect forest spirits. An important aspect is that there's a close connection between not just the people in the Prey Long Community Network, but also villages around Prey Long connected to forest spirits, particularly what they call Lok Ta or Net Ta, And even for the people in the Prey Long Community Network, one of their important ceremonies that they conduct every year in about February is that they often hold a ceremony for sacred within parts of the forest where there's believed to be nectar, or sacred forest, where they provide offerings and ask for the help of the spirit in protecting Prey Long. So there's a close connection between people and the forest spirits of Prey Long. Chop an egg.
Oh, thank you. Is that all from Mr. Savannah?
So he just wants to conclude by saying that there's one of the other important activities is every 3 months they compile a report based on the situation in Prey Long, which they then pass on to different partners who work outside of Prey Long. That's an important part of what they do is collection of data and making sure that there's up to date information about the situation in Prey Long. But he also wants to finish off by talking about one of the major challenges that Prey Long Community Network is facing across all 4 provinces at the moment is a problem with the Ministry of Environment. So since 2016, or a few years after the formal creation of Prey Long as a protected area, the Ministry of Environment has had very strict control of Prey Long. So that's meant that they have stopped allowing community groups to do patrols, which is a big difficulty for him and for others within the Prey Long Community Network. And they've also prohibited them from doing ceremonies, which involve the forest spirits. So he would just like to finish up on that, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Bong Savannah and Tim Fruber, for sharing the experience on the ground and how challenging it is to protect the forest from the community perspective, with this kind of rapidly changing power dynamics between conservation state and development agencies. So now we move to the next part of the conversation. We will start with the questions, and each of the presenter will have 2 minutes or so to answer the questions. And the first question would be, is how have the representations and the meaning of field and forest and fallow changed over time? And let's begin with Dr. Jandet.
Yeah, thank you, Sophia, for the question. If I understand the question correctly, in short, I may say that the representations and meanings of forest in the commune, I think, change from customary forest to forest that could be cleared to grow cash crops for economic improvement, to improve their livelihoods in terms of increase income. So I think the meanings of the forest change from the one for customary livelihoods, I think basically in the past, to the current one for livelihood improvement, but in an economic sense. But at the same time, we saw a decline, as I mentioned, the decline in the values of indigeneity and associated cultural values. For example, as I mentioned, in some villages, villagers have completely abandoned Sweden cultivation, which is, I think, a key identifier of their indigeneity. And also the changes have brought the shrinking of spiritual forests and burial grounds, for example, that are quite important, as Savanara mentioned, in terms of religious and cultural values of indigenous people. Yeah, I think that's it. I can say this. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. So, so yes, the depletion of the spiritual forest and replaced by the commercial land use, and that's very interesting. And now we move to Dr. Walker. So please share your opinions about the questions.
Sure. I guess similarly, I've seen similar trends in Barao, and particularly in the Hulu Kalai communities that I've worked with in the western inland forests there. It's been centuries of interactions between different groups, and so there have been sort of overlapping and intersecting meanings of forests that have coexisted for a long time, I would say, in this landscape. And so, as has been previously mentioned by multiple speakers, for a lot of the indigenous communities in the area, there are meanings grounded in the forests based around ideas of sort of more than human sociality. So whether that's relationships with spirits, with ancestors, with wildlife, there are particular meanings and relationships that are specifically non-economic and non-exchange or market oriented. And this feels very different than a lot of the other sort of values that have been embodied and imbued onto these forests and their particular products or resources that people have either traded or sought to create markets for in the intervening decades and centuries, whether that's things like rotan or damar resin, as well as things like biodiversity of high conservation valued species, or as multiple speakers have talked about, the forest carbon that is of a particular interest right now in the current global agenda to mitigate climate change. And so I feel like there has been particular trends towards commodification, particular trends towards privatization at perhaps the expense of a lot of these more than human social relationships that still exist, but are perhaps more muted now than in the past.
Thank you very much, Dr. Walker. So now we move to Amand.
Yeah, thank you. So basically, Ifugao is not exempted from the trends that have been observed and pointed out by Dr. Chanrit and Dr. Walker in their respective field sites. So before the government, religion, and modernity took root in Ifugao, Ifugao's practice land zoning where use was strictly delineated and custom law maintained their observance. Since they were like subsistence agriculturists, they understood that mountains were protection areas, water sinks which supplied the irrigation needs for the pond fields and vegetable gardens. So there was minimal activity in the mountains before, just limited to hunting and the collection of non-timber forest products. And their timber and fuel needs were served in the lower zone Muyung or clan-owned forests. These are more production areas which were sustained through assisted rejuvenation or replacement, regular clearing of underbrush, among others. And primary food production was centered in the plant fields where heirloom rice and certain vegetables were grown and were edibles, such as green leafy vegetables, edible snails, fish, and other foodstuff were gathered. In essence, the pine fields are today's modern day supermarkets. But however, now people see nature as increasingly see it as commodity where everything can be exchanged for money. So there's logging, chemical farming, monocropping, the replacement of heirloom rice with laboratory developed varieties and strains and vegetable species, of course, with all their attendant impacts, such as biodiversity loss, pollution, cultural loss, among others. So it's all over Southeast Asia, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Armand. And now we move to Mr. Sawana. Please, your turn. You're mute, Tim. You're mute. You're mute.
Yes. Nó slide some luôn rồi. Hello, lừa rồi. Bà. Anh đang cầm đua hàng pram được rau mà mấy rồi. Anh đang nhóc sẽ nạp bằng về hạt bàn để. Rồi bắt thêm được bạn còn nè bỏ prai trong giờ đấy.
សំណួរចង់សួរថាតើពេលបច្ចុប្បន្នហ្នឹងពីមុនមកដល់ឥឡូវតើពាក្យអត្ថន័យថាព្រៃឈើហើយនឹងស្រែចម្ការវាមានការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរមិនដែរពីមុនព្រៃមានន័យថាម៉េចតែឥឡូវហ្នឹងតើមានន័យយ៉ាងម៉េចដែរបងបាទ
Hello ណាលើ Bàអត់លឺសុំនិយាយលឺតិច Okay, he'd like to say that in the In the past, in Prey Long, not so many years ago, there was a lot of large and dense forest, in particular large trees. People had a very different relationship to the forest as they do now. In the past, people did swidden farming, and it was done in a way that was not destructive to the forest. But you can see, particularly in the last, say, 20 years, there's been a lot of changes where there's been a lot of land clearing for both smallholder land and for commercial crops. So you can see that as this transition occurs, there's a lot of changes. The way that people's customs and their traditions towards the forest has also changed as the forest has decreased and declined. So there's less close connections, spiritual connections between people in the forest and today. Okay, so he'd also like to talk about some of the challenges that are changing this conception of forest. A big one is that in the last several decades, the last decade or so, there's been a lot of people who, with authority or people who have money, who have the ability to come in and cut trees, particularly for timber. So there's been a large shift in the way that people understand the forest. So there's been a lot of small scale commercial timber harvesting where people see the trees as kind of representations of money. Secondly, he'd like to talk about the problem of agricultural companies, particularly one big one, a large company, Parche Think Biotech, which took 30,000 hectares of land. And then on top of that, there's also a mining company that operates in Prey Long. And in both these instances, they've taken large amounts of forest land. And so without consideration for people's connections or people's traditions towards that forest. Okay, thank you. That's it. That's the section.
Thank you for your I think we see similar pattern here in terms of shifting and disappearing of the traditional forest spiritualities and moving toward this commercializing forest and land. So the next question here is then about, so how can you describe the relationship between human and non-human being in your site and or home where you live? And what happened to the human and non-human being when the forest disappears? Let me start with Bonswanna again, and Tim. Can you you are very grounded in the field.
គាត់ចង់សួរពីតំណែងវាអ្នកភូមិនិងលោកតាអ្នកតាពីមុនមកសូមជួយរៀបរាប់ពីតំណែងហើយរងឆ្នាំរបស់ធ្វើឲ្យខ្លួនខ្លះហើយតាំងពីប្រៃឈើបានរងការកាប់ផ្លាយតំណែងជាមួយនឹងលោកតាអ្នកតាវាផ្លាស់ប្ដូរប្រែប្រួលទៅវិញហើយអរគុណច្រើនសម្រាប់ហើយ Thank you for this question. ការតំណែងរបៀបវិជាជីវ័នជាមួយតាមថាបីវាដាក់ក្នុងគ្នាដោយមានរូបចំមានន័យថាយើងមានរូបស្នងអញ្ចឹងទៅហើយទៅពេលដែលអ្នកភូមិរបស់មានបញ្ហាជំងឺឈឺ
បញ្ហាមួយលោកតែតែចូលមកនៅក្នុងស្នងដល់នឹងដើម្បីបញ្យល់ប្រាប់ហេតុផលដែលយើងខុសបន្ទាប់មកគឺអ្នកដែលមានបញ្ហាគឺគាត់បែបបត់ហើយគាត់បែបបត់ទៅបាក់ជាបន្ទាប់មកគឺយើងធ្វើការរៀបគាត់នេះក៏ថាយើងគាត់ដាក់មាត់ដាក់ជ្រុងអីចឹងទៅគឺយើងធ្វើតាមនឹងការពីគាត់ពីបែបនេះថា
No, Janyo Borasan. He'd like to say that the people in Pray Long have a very deep connection to the non-human world or to forest spirits. So particularly talking about the forest spirit Loktan Eta, who's considered the owner of the land, the original owner of the land. He says that for a very, very long time, people have had an intimate connection particularly through the use of spirit mediums. So people will often consult during ceremonies with spirit mediums who will give people information from the spirit, the forest spirit, about what the situation, what's happening. So often when people do something wrong or there's been an event happening within the village, they'll be told through the spirit medium what they have to do to make an offering or to appease the forest spirit. So people, forest spirits will often tell them if someone's done something wrong or done something incorrect in the village, they'll tell them what they have to do in order to make things better with the forest spirit. So he'd like to say another really important facet of the relationship with Netta and Lokta is that every harvest season, people within the villages have to make sure that they conduct a ceremony with the forest spirit, and there's 3 different reasons for doing this. The first is that they want to ask for safety and protection from the forest spirit, and this applies not just to the people in the village, but it also applies to even like the draft animals, to the buffalo, to the cows. The second thing, and also for the safety of villagers in general, that they'll be free from sickness and other things. The second important part of this is that they're also thanking the spirit for the harvest that they collect. So once they've collected, usually it's traditionally held during the harvest of rice. So they're also thanking the spirit that they were able to harvest rice and have a successful harvest. So people will, in this way, they'll create a shrine always in the area of the Lokta Netta, and within that shrine, every February or during and throughout the year, they'll go to physically visit and connect literally to the forest spirit through both ceremonies or through talking with the spirit.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Oh, okay, you still have.
Okay,
Thank you very much. We hear that the relationship between the spirit is not just in the forest; they also spirit in to guard the field. So the field and the forest spirits are not necessarily separate things. So it's kind of interesting. So now we want to hear from Armand about the Ifuka, the right terrains kind of community. So how do they view that kind of a transition between forest and the field?
So I guess I already sort of provided a summary of this relationship in my introductory statement. So the more or less the symbiotic relationship has been changing into something of like a predatory one, with people assuming a dominant role in the apex. Mountains, forests, water bodies, rocks, and old trees before or still are seen as home to unseen beings, as well as, of course, animals. And now people are clearing the mountainsides and forests for timber needs or for their commercial vegetable cultivation. So wild animals are living with the destruction and desecration of their homes, and probably this is the case with the unseen entities as well. So in my village and in most parts of Ifugao, the large bats were hunted with guns to extinction. Other species like the dragonflies and many insects, which are being decimated with chemical farming. So there's still, we do not know the vast extent of the damage that's been caused by people for decades now with the use of modern farming, with the use of guns and the like. And in my field sites, the land still echoes with the existence of what you may call unseen entities, and hence what I related a while ago, where people mistakenly shoot their own kind, fellow hunters, because they look like deer or wild boar to them. These things still happen. So while animals and their homes are being like invaded, these entities are still they're still here. They still exist. That's what I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the spirit is still there. Even the forest somehow disappearing and being distracted. So now we move to Dr. Walker about your cases in Indonesia.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I guess I just want to echo a number of things that have already been eloquently spoken about. For the Dayak Punan communities that I've worked with in Barao, their landscapes are also peopled with a variety of non-human actors, whether that's wildlife, spirits, or ancestors. And though people's ability to see particular spirits and the spirit world have changed in the intervening decades as Christianity and other factors have reduced the particular potency of certain beliefs and certain knowledge bases, there's a widespread understanding in these communities that the need to respect those spirits and ancestors remains, and that disrespecting those spirits can cause sickness and can cause death, both within the community as well as for outside actors, such as logging companies that may not have pursued the proper permissions and rituals when they've entered an area. It's interesting just that, particular wildlife species are also seen as ancestors, and that there are longstanding agreements between community ancestors and wildlife ancestors that continue and extend to today. One example is around the particular crocodiles that live in their river system. There's been an agreement between those particular communities and those crocodiles that they will coexist in harmony, and that they will not be hunted on either side of that relationship, and that's extended back generations at this point. It's important to also note that there are a number of changes from concessionary incursion to the non-human world, and sort of accompanying drivers of climate change and disease. This means that fruiting season patterns have been disrupted, which then disrupt bee and honey production, animal, migrations and hunting seasons, and that it's really to protect this territory, to respect these actors, and to protest against these environmental disruptions that many groups in the area are continuing to actively resist palm oil concessions entry into the landscape, even though they have been granted formal concessions by the government.
Thank you very much. Very fascinating to see that it's not just human and particular spirit being that are connected. It's everything is connected together. If you distract the whole chain of connection, and then the whole spiritual, non-human and human world is being highly disrupted. So now we move to Dr. Chandra. How would you answer that question?
Thank you, Sophia. We observe similar things that Savannah mentioned about Pray Long regarding the forest spirits. But here I want to add that an interesting aspect is that some non-members of the indigenous communities, I mean, especially those who got private landholders and they do not belong to the commune land titling program, lost access to spiritual forests. They reported that because they're not members, so they have reduced access to spiritual forests in their villages. And I think this is interesting because we see a disconnection between the non-members and the spiritual forest in some villages. And also the shrinking of burial grounds. We heard about the population growth there, the number of villagers there has been increasing, but the burial grounds remain the same or have been reduced. We heard about in some cases there's no distance between the different types of bodies die of different causes based on their traditional cultures. So they need to bury the bodies close to each other. And sometimes they said the bodies had to be buried in 2 layers because the burial grounds have been limited. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's this sort of Dr. Chandra to showing this power dynamic of the human world that is interrupting the relationship with the spirit, the power dynamic within how human relate to the spirit. It's not just access to the resolve, it's also access to the spiritualities and a way of life. So we have the question from the audience now, and I posed a question on the list is, how would you describe the tension between state and the communities in terms of implementation of neoliberal development project in your perspective, case study, area over time, and how has the community manifest agency resistant against forest incursions for creeping territorializations? What shaped this resistant agency over time? So I would throw the question to all our panelists, speakers, who would like to take the questions.
If I may briefly answer this question. I think the community's agency is not absolute. It's relative. It's relative because they are supported by various agents, including NGOs and other community organizations. So as in the case of Prey Long, they do patrols, for example, regular patrols to protect their forest. Sometimes they do petitions, but as I mentioned in the commune, there were different powerful actors, including private sector, the companies, and local elites, including armed militaries that conducted encroachments on their forests. So this is like a big struggle for the communities, but somehow they have gained some success in terms of, for example, in the past, stopping the forest concession, and in terms of getting some portions of the lost forest areas back from ELCs. So what shapes their resistance or agency over time? I think one thing that I can say is the increasing economic value of land and forest inspire or spur them to resist, to protect their resources. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. So community agencies are not independent of the agency from the outside. So it's very interesting to see how complex the agency, what agency mean and how it manifests. So any other speakers like Dr. Walker, you have any opinion on that, or Aman, you are mute here. So yeah, please.
Oh, please go ahead, Dr. Walker. I can follow first.
Oh, sure. I'll be quick. Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, add on to that point, that I think an important piece of the puzzle are those civil society organizations that often seem to act as bridges or mediators between these neoliberal agendas from the state to communities, and that at least in Barao, the actual agendas have been now being implemented for years and decades. And so there is pretty well established ideas about the benefits and sort of the norm of what quote unquote development looks like for people and in places. And it kind of raises the question about, how much as these particular agendas and discourses that prioritize, privatization of land, that prioritize the creative entrepreneurial spirit that communities can create, handicraft businesses or ecotourism lodges, or, pursue particular commodity crops. In what ways are those agendas and discourses also enabling false or particular ideas of agency that are actually perhaps more illusory than real? And I'm just, always trying to be attentive to those relationships as well.
Aman, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to continue with that. I guess I think there's this element of cooptation with some civil society organizations. The government would, the state and their commercial partners would try to co-opt civil society organizations, and if they cannot, and if these organizations are more militant, I don't know if you know, the Philippines has like grown more dangerous in the past 6 years with the near authoritarian government. So what they have been doing here, I mean, companies have been like building mini dams, and it's either agency of the local communities is very limited because the state does red tagging, you know, labeling people and organizations as communists or terrorists if they are against, or if they speak out against these quote unquote developments and are not convinced of the benefits for the people. So yeah, the agency of local communities depends on the type of government that the central government that's ruling the country. And there has been a change of government last July. It appears that this new government is more is less authoritarian perhaps, but we still have a long way to go to see if it's really the case, as the implementers of the law or state forces appear to have like been used to wielding too much power. We don't know if they will like just give it back to the communities. So yeah, agency depends on who's in power and how do they govern.
Thank you very much. So we have 2 more minutes, 2 last minutes, and whether Bong Sumana have a last word to say, or
នៅបណ្ណាសូមជួយរៀបរាប់ខ្លីៗឲ្យបញ្ហាទាក់ទងនឹងខាងសហគមន៍នៅតំបន់ប៉ៃឡង់តាំងពីរងសម្ពាធពីរាជរដ្ឋាភិបាលការតស៊ូរបស់សហគមន៍មានរបៀបម៉េចហើយសូមជួយរៀបរាប់ខ្លីបាទ Mana seems to just hold on 1 sec, sorry. If Mana is connecting again. Mana. Lưu ấy Mana.
Hello, Lily.
No. Mana bên lưu đưa mới nhé rồi. Này. Mana xong chui បញ្ហាខាងសហគមន៍នៅតំបន់ព្រៃឡង់កាលណាដែលរងសម្ពាធពីរាជរដ្ឋាភិបាលការតស៊ូរបស់ខាងសហគមន៍វារបៀបម៉េចអាចសូមជួយរៀបរាប់ឲ្យខ្លីៗបាទ
ជាថាសហគមន៍នៅតែចូលរួមហើយមួយទៀតដោយសារតែបណ្ដាញសង្គមឡងនេះយើងកើតឡើងដោយជីវរដ្ឋនេះថាយើងចងក្រងគ្នាតាមអត្តបានបង្កើតស្ថាប័នដល់ប្រទេសណាចឹងកម្លាំងតស៊ូយើងតស៊ូដោយឆន្ទៈដោយការចូលរួមដោយស្ម័គ្រចិត្តយើងមិនមានប្រាក់ខែប្រាក់និមន្តទេហើយគោលដៅរបស់សកម្មបណ្ដាញសង្គមយើងត្រូវតែចូលរួមបែបនេះហើយមួយទៀតគឺយើងត្រូវតែច្រករកការដើម្បីជជែកជាមួយសួរនៅក្នុងពាក់ព័ន្ធដែរតែឥឡូវនេះវាមិនទាន់បានអាចការបញ្ជាក់តបប៉ុន្តែព្យាយាមធ្វើយ៉ាងណាដើម្បីជជែកជាមួយរដ្ឋាភិបាលដើម្បីបានការងារ
So the Prey Long Community Network is a community network that's 100% run by local voluntary. It's created on a voluntary basis by people living in villages. So it's not the same as an organization or as the government. So the really important thing is that the Prey Long Community Network hasn't been fully co-opted because it hasn't been formalized or registered by the government. So it retains some level of autonomy. But even regardless, and that's been a difficulty retaining that degree of autonomy from government. regardless of that, they still try to find a way that when it's necessary to discuss and figure out a way to try and solve issues with the government to be able to keep on protecting the forest and doing what they do.
Thank you very much, B now, and we have to end now here. And thank you for the panelists who joined this very meaningful and interesting conversations. And we know that how complex it is, in terms of human-nature relation and also power dynamic that manifests around that. Even local community have agency, have to depend on the external agency to sort of find a way to fight for the forest. Thank you very much, and I would call to an end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophia and everyone. Very good. Okay. Good.
Thanks,
Nice.
Sophia.
Thank you.